Oh, we finally have baseball back. I am so excited because the season is right around the corner. Lockouts. We hated you, but you're finished. And now we got the season going again, which is great, which means only one thing. This beauty is out now. That's right. It's been 27 years that the team at Baseball Prospectus has taken care of their annual. And this year, you've got none other than one of the best outfielders in all of baseball, Juan Soto, on the cover. And with us right now to talk about it from the BP team is Jeffrey Paternostro, who not only is a Baseball Prospectus writer, but he specializes in the prospects as well. You Padres, Chihuahuas fans are going to want to hear that for sure. Jeffrey, welcome to the show. Welcome to El Paso. Good to have you on.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. And by the way, big props on your mic setup. That is about as good a mic as I've heard on our Zoom interviews in a long time. So thanks for going the extra effort and making sure you took care of that.
Yeah, I do a little podcast production myself, so I have a pretty good setup.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in the studio right next to us. So that's really nice. Hey, meanwhile, the book is almost 600 pages, which is what we've come to expect. If you've never had the Baseball Prospectus Annual, I liken it to the old phone books, the Yellow Pages, back when those were a regular mainstay. But it is a guide. It is a must-have for the baseball season. And we're talking about 2,000 plus player projections, lots of commentary, a lot of analysis. It's the kind of book that, as you're preparing for the season, Jeffrey, I would just say you get to learn so much more about not just your team, but every team in baseball. And if you play fantasy baseball, it's an absolute must-have.
Absolutely. And we have a dedicated fantasy team, of course, at Baseball Prospectus that writes on the site as well. But getting those PECOTA projections for all those players, I think, is a little leg up for your fantasy draft. You know, this year, because of the lockout, there was a lot less player movement. So we actually had a free agents chapter because this went to press probably around New Year's. So a lot of the players hadn't signed yet that have signed in the last 2 weeks or so. So when we have updated projections now on the site, their projection is going to be in a neutral park. So, add a little bit to Chris Bryant playing every day in course. But yeah, it does get, I think, probably one of the most in-depth projection systems out there. That's certainly been, among the most accurate every year. It's certainly competitive with everything you're going to get out there. And that's just the depth of writing you get on each team. I think it's probably 50 to 60 players. So it's going to be everybody on the 40-man roster. It's going to be the team's top prospects. So you're going to get a little bit of everything.
Couple of things here. First off, I hope that they keep the free agent section every year because it's nice when you have players that haven't signed around the time that this book goes to press to all be grouped together instead of having to try to find out their last team, where you think that. So that was a great addition. I really like that. And also, as far as PECOTA goes, if people that have heard us talk about Baseball Prospectus over the years, they've heard what PECOTA is, but they don't exactly know how it's derived. How do you explain what ultimately projects, how each player is going to do each and every season?
So I am the prospect guy, not the stats guy, but I can give you some insight into the process as best I can. It's based on comparable players. So it's going to look at basically every bit of information we have about the players so far, where they are on the aging curve, what they've done in the last few seasons, stuff as simple as like listed height and weight. And it's just trying to find comparable players and how they did at that, whatever their seasonal age is for that year. And there's a lot more stuff that goes into it too. It adjusts for, maybe they were a little lucky on balls in play last year, and that can mean a few extra hits dropped. That could mean something, deeper into their batted ball profile. They should have been better or worse than they were. So it's a really deep modeling system. So it's not just looking at the stat line and the age. It really gets into the weeds and tries to tell you what their ultimate performance is going to be. And the projection you see too is the median projection. It's the 50th percentile outcome. If you actually go on the site too, you can see stuff at the 10th percentile, 30th percentile, 50th percentile, 70th, all the way up to 99. So if you really want to see, I think I looked in Jacob deGrom's 99th percentile projection for this year is like a 0.86 ERA or something like that. So it's it's what's possible, but it'll also give you an idea of sort of what the range of outcomes for those players are going to be as well.
Jeffrey Paternostro with us from Baseball Prospectus. Again, you want the book, you can go to baseballprospectus.com and order it on the website. Probably the easiest way to obtain the copy of the prospectus. And I also say this, as far as the write-ups go on every player, have a sense of humor, because ultimately I think the writers put a lot of personality into their write-ups. Sometimes they go off on tangents, and I like it because it's not just the same thing over and over again. Some of these write-ups really have a good little sense of humor to them.
Yeah, I mean, we want to definitely cover like who the player is. If you're coming in as if you're coming in as a Blue Jays fan and don't follow the Mariners that closely, like you want to get an idea of what that player is, what their sort of strengths and weaknesses are. Like we probably don't have to tell you that Mike Trout's the best player in baseball or stuff like that, or Juan Soto, who's on the cover. You probably know who that is. But, and you maybe have a little bit more fun with those. But for, the seventh inning guy on a team that's not in your division, like we try to, tell you, oh, he's got a really good slider, or he was a little unlucky last year, give maybe a little bit more homer prone than you think. We do try to give that kind of information as well. But yeah, I think we're writers first and foremost, and we do try to, enjoy sort of the craft and the art of writing as well. I know I do when I do the top 101 prospects. Like I have to tell you what I think this player is going to be in the majors and what his best tool grades are and stuff like that too. But I do think it is important to make it a fun and like it's got to be a breezy read, right? It's 600 pages long.
That's exactly right. Now, Jeffrey, I'm going into the prospects because immediately on page 530 of this year's book, C.J. Abrams of the Padres is the 11th best prospect in all of baseball. And I know there's also a chance that C.J. Abrams could find himself debuting in El Paso to begin the year.
Yeah, I don't know for sure where he's going to end up. The leg injury last year, I think, makes that a little trickier to project. He's off to a pretty good start in spring. Again, it's going to come down to how he looks and how quickly the organization wants to move him. And with Fernando Tatis missing probably at least the first couple months of the season, there's an argument to get him to AAA as soon as possible and see what you have there, because he could be an important major league piece early on, especially when you've got the Giants and the Dodgers, who made big moves this offseason, looking to sort of put a stranglehold on the division as quick as possible. You want the best player up, and the Padres have major league depth, but Abrams can probably be an impact player in short order if he's healthy and gets a few at bats under him at the highest level. I thought he'd be up last year. They pushed him hard to AA, and if he hadn't been hurt, based on the start he got there and the reports we got there, I think there's a decent chance he would have made the majors at the end of the year. You can look at the Padres trying out Tatis a little bit in the outfield as maybe an eye towards that. And Abrams himself is an elite level runner, although we'll have to see how that plays out coming off the knee injury. And he could have some outfield flex as well. He can play a little second base. He's still a pretty good shortstop though.
Do you think ultimately Abrams sticks it short and they move Tatis around? What do you think they'll do?
I don't know. That's going to be an organizational decision. That's a little above my pay grade, but I will say that if you look at baseball teams and high level baseball teams, first division teams, the best organizations around right now, they're looking for guys to have some positional flexibility, even their best players. They want them to be able to move around a little bit. They want them, so I suspect ideally you're playing Abrams 5 days a week at one spot, whether it's shortstop or second base or perhaps the outfield. But you want him to have that positional flexibility. You want him to be able to move around. You want him to be able to, give Manny Machado a day off at third, or, play a day in center. And maybe, again, it's going to depend on, your ideal lineup construction against that day's starting pitcher and stuff like that. But I mean, I think Abrams can play shortstop every day for me. Like that's certainly something he can do. The fact that he doesn't necessarily need to do that on the Padres, I think is a bonus more than anything else.
Jeffrey Paternostro with us from Baseball Prospectus, giving us his thoughts on the Padres system, beginning with C.J. Abrams. Are there any other top-level prospects in your 101 list that could make it to as far as AAA this season?
So Robert Hassel, their first-round pick in 2020, prep outfielder, I don't think it's likely per se. He got the high A last year, struggled a little bit, only really played a little under a month there. But he is the kind of guy I expect he'll go back to Fort Wayne this year. That is the kind of offensive prospect that if he breaks out, he can pretty much set his own timetable. And you're probably looking at a few months in double A, a few months in high A, the balance of the season in double A, and then maybe, September, you look to get him a little taste, 3 weeks there. The AAA season goes a little bit longer to get him some extra at bats. He could push that timetable up further than that, but I think that's probably the most likely outcome for him. A great 5-tool outfielder, really, really potential plus hit, plus power guy. Could be a 300 hitter with 20 plus home runs in the majors. Was arguably the best prep bat in that class with either him or Zach Veen, who both went in the top 10, Veen to the Rockies. So he's definitely one to at least keep an eye on to see how he progresses in 2022.
I'm with you on that one. And I know other than that, the Padres have always been loaded with prospects, but they've traded a lot of them off the last couple of years as they've tried to build. I'm wondering about a couple of pitchers, Mackenzie Gore being one, who was a former top prospect, and then Ryan Weathers. Could we see them both start in El Paso to begin the season?
I think so. Some of that is going to depend, I think, especially in Weathers' case, is going to depend on how the sort of incumbent Padres rotation looks in spring training. You have Clevenger coming off Tommy John surgery, and it's just going to be, is there an injury? Does he need to start in the majors because of that? Mackenzie Gore, we're only a couple of years removed now from Mackenzie Gore being the best pitching prospect in baseball, and you have to assume that's still in there. And, there's been minor injuries here and there. He struggled with some blister issues. He has the kind of pitching mechanics where you look at it and you think, I don't think you can be shocked. He's gotten a little out of sorts at times, especially with his command and control. And the Padres have kind of rebuilt his mechanics a little bit to try to smooth things out. And it's been a work in progress. 2022 is going to be a very important season for him. Based on his minor league track record so far, I'd expect he would start at least in double A, probably triple A. And he's going to have to find out if he can put himself into a starting rotation conversation on the big league team fairly quickly. But he's definitely a guy that I think he's sort of appointment. I almost call it appointment television, but he's worth buying a ticket for a different reason than Abrams, just to really see what he has. Because when he was right, he was 95 from the left side with 2+ secondaries, just absolutely could carve up a minor league lineup. And that's fun to see. It's not just pure power stuff, although he throws plenty hard. It's a fun day out at the ballpark when he looks good.
If you want to follow Jeffrey on Twitter, you can. It's at Jeff Paternostro on Twitter, at Jeff Paternostro. You can also go to baseballprospectus.com, learn more about Mackenzie Gore, Cal Abrams, the entire Padres, and all of baseball by picking up a copy of the Baseball Prospectus 2022 Annual, and also the Futures Guide, which is exactly what Jeffrey's been talking about, just more detailed looks into what the Padres and every minor league system is all about. Hey, this has been a lot of fun. You've got a lot of free content on the website as well. So if people have never been to Baseball Prospectus, this would be a great time to check out the website for the first time.
Absolutely. And, we're winding up our season previews right now. We kind of did them as off-season primers because we had to start them in March. And obviously the free agent stuff hadn't completely shaken out yet at that point. But we're winding those up in the next couple of weeks. And wants to see, we also have, obviously we've had a lot of transaction analysis with all the free agent signings and trades. So that's been the bulk of the content in recent weeks. Also, we've been doing a lot of fantasy positional previews as well. So you want a leg up on your fantasy league. We do deep dives on each of the positions from both a redraft and a dynasty league format.
Well, we get Jay Jaffe on every Wednesday, and when we first got him on, he was still with Baseball Prospectus, so that's where it all started for him. And happy you guys are still going strong. Love the new book. I recommend that to all of our listeners out there. And hey, Jeffrey, keep in touch. We'd love to have you back on during the season so we could talk more prospect talk with you for the Padres.
Sounds good to me.